two biggest climate stories of 2019 are Greta Thunberg and Donald Trump. And then they're on opposite ends. Greta Thunberg has been part of a global movement by young people. She is not the only one. She is just the visible symbol, and things have coalesced around her. On the other hand, you have Donald Trump, who still denies that climate change is real and has pulled the United States out of the Paris Agreement. And Donald Trump also, like Greta, is not just the whole movement, but a symbol. He's part of a nationalism that we're seeing more of, and you're seeing in Brazil and what's going on in the Amazon. So you have these two forces going in the other way, the young and the nationalistic. This climate conference in Madrid is one of the most unusual ones. The United States has formally started the withdrawal process. And it's in the middle of the withdrawal process, so the United States will still be there as a participant, but one that is saying, hey, we're getting out of the game. The withdrawal process for getting out of the Paris Climate Agreement takes a whole year. Countries have come together since 1992 to talk about climate change, and they've had two agreements, one in 98 and one in 2015. Yeah, we're seeing with climate change since 92. That's a good way to look at it, since that's when the world started talking about it. There have been $212 billion weather disasters in the United States alone, and that's about 8 a year. Before then, we were averaging about 3 a year. That's how much it's changed. In California, we have seen a 5-fold increase in wildfires since the 80s, and that has been connected to climate change. The temperature globally has increased 1 degree Fahrenheit since 1992. And that's a large amount. The Arctic sea ice is about 17% smaller. The seas have risen about 3 inches. And the reason for this is because there's more carbon dioxide in the air, more heat-trapping gases in the air. So what that does is climate change affects the extremes. You see more droughts, you see more downpours, and less of the middle. The countries that are most hurt by climate change, which are almost always poorest countries, small island nations, they feel that the countries that do the most damage, which are the richer countries, should pay them. It's called loss and damages. And in the Paris Agreement, there's vague promises to make these poorer countries whole. This is trying to make these vague promises less vague. That's sort of one of the big themes of this, is to make not only the promises on loss and damage less vague, but the issue of carbon tracking, carbon offsets, and carbon reductions less vague. 2020 in Scotland is when all the countries have to come up and say, okay, here's what we promised to do. Now we have to increase our promises to decrease emissions more. So this is finishing, cleaning up the last agreement and sort of laying the groundwork for the next.